Computer. Okay, hello and welcome to episode 2 of the UX Files. Bruce, welcome back.
Hey, thanks, Rich. Good to be back.
That's hard. I don't know if
Yeah.
I'm looking at you. Looking at you. I
Yeah,
think
I
it's,
know. Do I look here or do I look there? Not really sure, but yeah, no, excited to be back.
yeah.
Excited to be chatting about it, having another installment. What are we talking about today?
Today we are looking at tradie websites. So, we've probably all had to use them. Go and
Yeah.
book your plumber, electrician, anything around the house. So, they're very common and yeah, we often see some real disastrous UX experiences on the tradie sites, but some good ones too.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
I guess today we want to just explore, what are some of them what are some of the tradies that are doing well? What are some of the things that we want to take note of? And then what are other things that are really letting themselves down? And
Mm.
I'll be sharing some of my horror stories as well
Yeah,
on some of
yeah,
the that I've
yeah,
had in the past as well.
yeah. Well, when are you
Um,
gonna dive into that now? Because I'm excited to.
well,
What
okay,
I've got to
yeah,
say.
let's get into it. So and I guess the reason I'm telling this story is more to highlight why trust is just so important on these tradie sites.
Mm.
You go onto a site and it's so much is just about what makes me trust them quickly. Like I'm
Mm.
looking over and trust. Anyway, I mean, we've probably all got a similar story to this one, but this happened to me probably about a year ago now, and I had to fix a terrible noise in my dishwasher. So basically, it just started making this jackhammer noise. It's like this is about like 8 o'clock at night, and your
Oh,
daughter's
geez.
sleeping, and all of a sudden it's like like this just crazy jackhammer noise, and I'm like, what the hell is that? And then anyway, something's clearly broken, and I couldn't turn it off. Like so, I couldn't figure out where the electricity switch was for the dishwasher, and it's just going. So I had to turn off at the main. So I'm like, this is an emergency now.
You can turn it off at the wall. You have to turn
I
it
had
off
to turn
at
off
the
at the
main.
at the mains
I'm
because
old.
I didn't. There
Yeah,
actually was a switch like
yeah,
tucked away
yeah.
right at the back, but I
Behind.
couldn't find it
Couldn't move
in the
it.
panic.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
couldn't, in the panic of that noise, I just couldn't find it.
Yeah.
And so anyway, so I'm probably doing what everyone else does. You quickly on the mobile. All right, yep,
Yeah.
dishwasher repairer, and I kind of went to. It's probably like the first one that was there. Kind of looked like a decent site. I thought, oh, yeah, fine. Like these guys look reputable enough. But I didn't really do my research, to be honest. I was just in a bit of a panic. I was like, first one, I was like, yeah, let's go with this. And so this guy comes around and it's probably like 8:30 at this point. And initially he's like, oh, it's a $200 call out fee. And you go, oh, well, fair enough. It's out of hours. It's probably going to be some sort of call out fee. And you go, okay, fine.
Mm.
And you get there and the first thing he does is like, he gets his tablet out and he's like, all right, let's pay your call out fee now. And then, it's not
Before he's done anything.
before he's done anything, he's like, you got to pay for your call out fee. And then all of a sudden it's not a $200 call out fee. It's
Yeah.
$200 plus GST. So then
Oh,
it's a $220 call out fee. You're like, okay, well, that first thing
yeah.
where you go, oh, that's
It's
weird that they're
sneaky.
there.
It's like, yeah,
Yeah, it's a bit sneaky.
straight up,
And then
straightforward.
he tells me that yeah, so now we need to do like an investigation. It's an investigation piece. And that's $400 just to do an invest just to so he
Jeez.
goes, we're gonna do this investigation.
You've
And then
already bought a new dishwasher by now.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's what's going on in your mind. And you're like, what? And it takes a while to process. You go, hang on,
Yeah.
is this too much? I'm like, hang on. And so then are there going to be extra costs after that as well? He goes, well, we'll have to see what we find, and you're thinking,
Yeah.
so, okay. And I'm like, how long does this investigation take? And he's like, oh, it's about half an hour. And I'm just thinking, oh, I'm like, hang on, mate. Like,
400 bucks for half an
yeah,
hour.
it's
It's
half an hour
investigating and
plus.
not fixing anything.
Yeah. I'm like,
Yeah,
mate,
wow.
these are proper like lawyer fees you're charging me here. Like, oh, it's ridiculous. And then I go, can I have 5 minutes just to talk about this with my wife? And he goes, no, I need to know now. And I'm like, no, mate. I'm like, no, thank you. Like, there was just something that twigged off of me. I'm like,
Uh,
this is wrong. Like, there's just something wrong
yeah,
here.
yeah.
And he got really upset when I was like, mate, is like
But
this
he's
sounds
getting
very
paid his call out fee, so what's he upset about?
exactly. He was
Yeah.
getting really agitated. I'm like, mate, I just need some time to think about this. A lot of money. Like, I just, and he's like, no, you need to know now. He goes, no, fine. And he sort of starts like, threatening. He's walking out. I'm like, this just feels all wrong. So I was like, mate, just get out of here. And then like then I was like, who is this business? And there's like, you go to the business and there's like no person, no actual legitimate person there. And, he doesn't pick up your call when you're ringing back. And it was like just a total scam.
Gee.
And you're just like, oh
Yeah.
God. So
Google
anyway,
reviews? Did he have
no,
any
didn't
Google
have any
reviews?
Google. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I should have known better.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a sucker. I was I
Yeah.
was a sucker on that one.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I got totally sucker punched on that one.
Mm.
And but anyway, look, I think that's what we're all worried about. It's like, you go to the mechanic and the mechanic tells you, yeah, this is ABC and it's going to be $2,000 to fix. And you're like, well, is
Yeah.
it? I don't know.
Yeah. You don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So you like just have to trust the person and just go with whatever they say. So I know it's
Yeah.
yeah.
So it's a long way of saying trust is super important on these tradie sites. And also, and we'll sort of look at some of these trust signals there. But the other thing you touched on, an interesting one there, is Google reviews.
Mm.
And a lot of tradies won't realize just how important they are. We've seen a bunch of industries now where some of those maps are getting thousands and thousands of visits a month just from being in the top place of the maps.
Mm.
And you could run your entire business just out of Google Maps. Like you wouldn't even need a
Yeah.
website. You
Yeah.
go, look, we're here to talk about UX right now, but
Yeah.
a lot of these tradie sites, you could, if you did a good job on the maps,
Mm.
you almost wouldn't need a website.
Well, it's worth mentioning though that maps, one reason to have a website, because that's a true statement, that like maps, probably I'd say a large percentage, if not the majority of people who are searching for tradies are going to be using suburb-based terms,
Yep. Yeah,
or
there's a
like local
lot of
terms. So they're going to be saying plumber, and then the name of their suburb, or, I live down in Geelong, so I'd be saying, plumber Geelong or Highton, or if you hear Richmond or whatever it might be, or you're saying plumber near me, and then just interacting with the map. So then
yeah.
they're getting a maps listing. That's always going to trigger a maps listing. Any local search is always going to trigger Google Maps as probably your first, result on the results page. And then you're right, most people are at that point, especially if they're in a situation like yours, they're just going to click the call button. So they're not going to interact with the website at all. So then the reviews become really important,
Yeah.
which is what you didn't read.
No, you want to read those reviews
So
first.
that's important. But what I will just say, because it's an important one that you don't want anyone who's listening to this to miss, though, is there is still value in having a website to help rank your maps listing.
Yes. Yeah. No,
Having those
absolutely. Yeah, you
pages
need it
that are
to better
signals
index it.
to
Yeah.
the maps listing, so that at least you get your maps listing ranking, because it's not purely just you spin up a maps listing and you get some good reviews and you're automatically in the first position. You need
Well,
those other signals
not in
as
the
well.
first position, but depending on how competitive it is, I spun up a website for a friend a few weeks back. It's Coburg City Painters, if you want to have a look at that one.
Okay.
And then we spun up a Google Maps like in tandem with it.
Mm-hmm.
And within 2 days, he was ranking in the top 7 for Coburg Painters
Wow.
and got his first lead.
Joking.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
Gee,
you just think like
that
it's
is,
so
yeah,
powerful.
that's
Like, you think about
and
like
how, like, what sort of website are we talking as well? You said you did spin up a website. Was it just like a
it's
three-pager,
essentially
or
like consider it like a theme website. It
yeah,
was like based on our sort of your local
yeah, okay,
listing theme.
yeah. So it's
And
not
it's
like tons of content, or it's just
It was
a couple
probably,
of
yeah, it
signals
was probably
to
like
the
5 or 6 pages on the website,
mm,
and then yeah, but then he put he probably got like 7 or 8 reviews up.
mm,
And look, you shouldn't just get only your friends and family to give you reviews.
yeah,
Obviously, Google is pretty clear on
yeah,
this now. You do need to
yeah.
have legitimate reviews, but if you're putting
Realistic,
it
that's
up,
where most people start.
yeah, if
You
you're
sort of
putting
have
it
to
up, it's
start.
okay
Yeah.
to get, I would say, your first half dozen,
Mm,
and you probably want to try to keep them to the area that you're in, you
mm,
try to keep them Melbourne based if you're a
mm,
Melbourne business. Um, but it just shows that, there's a lot of business listings in these niches of tradies and you might only need 10 reviews to be, in the top three there.
Mm,
So you
yeah.
get a lot of bang for your buck on
Mm,
Google business listings. So,
yeah,
and then just
massive.
optimizing it, get it fully optimized. So,
Yeah.
yep, do the reviews, but also make sure you got the images up there, post some articles or content on there.
Keep it fresh.
Oh, the other hack for um, for tradies with their Google business is, if you're open to this, there's two things really. One is have your business open 24/7. Now
Yeah.
it's a bit cheeky,
Mm,
but the way Google works is it's favoring to show the businesses that are open.
yeah.
And a lot of people search at 8 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
You
Oh,
or
that's a
I,
good hack actually. But
yeah,
is it does it work? Does it need to be 24/7 or does
no,
it you
no,
can just actually extend past the hours of your
correct.
competitors? So
Well, yeah, you'd
so
what you
hopefully your competitors are not listening to this podcast right now. And
no, that
you're
would
the only
be
one
a disaster.
getting this little tip. But yeah,
Um,
if you sort of stretch it out just a couple of hours either side
yeah,
of normal business
yeah, if you're
hours,
more comfortable with that, yeah,
and
exactly.
that's also largely due to the fact that that's when people are searching, and then if the business is closed, you're not going to see that listing. Is that effectively what
It's
you're
not that
sort
you
of
don't. I
suggesting?
mean, if they're all closed, then Google still
Yeah,
just has the same
but if
order.
you're
But
open,
if you're open,
yours is going to be
it's not a
in a more prominent
guaranteed, but
position
you'll
potentially.
get a significant boost.
Yeah.
So, you might have been out of the,
Mm,
out of the top three, but because you're now open and the others aren't, you might be in the top three. So you're getting that extra boost in those out of
yeah.
hours. So it's a good little hack if you're prepared to do it. The other one is if you're a you might be a plumber, electrician, you may not have an actual business address, but it's actually just there's such an advantage in actually putting a registered address,
Yeah,
as
because there's
opposed to
two.
servicing
Yeah,
just
those are
an
the two
area.
options. There's
Mm.
a service area versus an address. And so you're saying the address option is we see better results from the
It's
when
yeah,
you actually have a physical location rather than saying, look, I just service this area.
yeah, and
And it's a more
Google.
straightforward process to get verified but through having a physical address as
Yes,
well.
yeah, if you can. Now, the downside is if you're just a small business, you may not want to register your home, right?
Yeah.
You might feel uncomfortable with that.
Mm,
But I would just say there's just such empirically, I've just seen such a benefit.
mm,
Certain businesses that have had it in registered areas really getting no traffic at all
mm,
on the maps, and then you go, okay, yep, we're an address, and then all of a sudden, bang, like really high listings for the area that they're in.
mm,
So definitely. I get it is a bit of a trade-off. Like, you may feel uncomfortable with that, but it's a good one to consider if you can
mm.
register an address because
Yeah.
we've seen it empirically. There's a really good boost
Yeah.
there. Um, so
Yeah, good one.
so yeah,
There's a couple of good little nuggets there for maps listing. We were going to talk about UX, but that's
yeah, we
good.
don't need a website now. We're
Yeah,
saying
yeah,
like,
exactly.
tradies don't need to
Have the
worry about.
website for the signal,
Yeah,
send your hours, use a physical location.
yeah,
I think those are the sort of
some good
three
one, and just
topics,
get
and
as
then keep
many
it fresh,
reviews
get as
as you
many
can.
reviews. Those are kind of the
Yeah,
obvious ones.
yeah.
So get lots of reviews,
Um,
keep your listing fresh, add images, talk about your business.
yeah. And I
Um,
should say, just to be clear, like definitely don't pay to get fake reviews
no,
because I've seen some businesses come unstuck with that, and that's a disaster for you. So,
yeah.
A couple of friends and
Also, that
families, I think is
often
okay, but
bad reviews though. Like you read,
yeah,
I don't know if you have this experience, but I find when I am reading reviews, and I think this is a more recent thing because we're starting to see more and more people pay for fake reviews, and you're seeing like AI as well writing reviews, and you can almost
yeah,
sense it,
yeah, that's an AI.
and you're just like something just
Yeah,
feels off. And then I lose trust completely. So I might even go onto a maps listing and see that it's got really good reviews. Um, but then you read a handful of them and you go, oh,
yeah,
something feels off about these reviews. And
yeah,
then I just skip past it. I'm just not interested. So
yeah.
don't do that.
Agree,
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah.
All
Get
right,
real reviews.
yeah.
Yeah.
And look, it's they're not
And it's
easy to
okay
get,
to
but
not, it's also okay not to only have 5-star reviews because that's another thing that I think people worry about is they go, oh, what if I get a bad review? So long as the majority of your reviews are good, 4 and 5 star,
yeah,
it's actually more authentic to have 1 or 2 reviews where maybe you can't please everyone all of the time. Maybe somebody wasn't happy. So long as you respond to them and your response is visible on the listing as well, that's fine.
Yeah,
That's totally
exactly.
fine.
Because people expect you're going to have some bad reviews, so they're interested in how you respond.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool.
All right.
Well,
Should we dive
yeah,
into some
let's dive
UX?
into some UX examples. What I'll do is I'll share my screen so we can see an example here. But I want to show you I'll show you a cool one first, and then I'll show you one that we've also designed up so
Then
you
I'm
can get
going
a
to
sense
spring
of.
one on you
Yeah,
for you to look at and give your opinion on as well.
great.
We'll do that
Well,
later.
so this is the first one here, which I quite like, is Mint Plumbing, and they've clearly it's quite actually. I'm quite impressed that a plumber has got to this level of branding. See, I've got this video here,
Yeah,
like,
that's awesome.
and it's pretty solid brand. I mean, I would say that brings quite a bit of trust that you go, this probably isn't a mob that's just going to come in and like charge me $600 and leave. Um, and they have a zero call out fee, which is nice to see, and they're being quite quite honest
Certainly
about
no
that.
door, mate.
But I would almost say though, be interested what you think about this, but I'd almost say that this site is nearly too flashy.
Yeah.
Like when you kind of like when you get a tradie, you almost don't want it too flashy because then you're a bit worried that it's going to be too expensive.
Yeah.
And we've seen this a little bit with some of the user testing as well. So I would say I think this is a really nice design. I would say almost you start thinking as the user here, you go, oh, this is going to be top dollar for my plumbing here. I'm not getting like the, Joe good value down the road. But I think they're showing off their services high up. That's really important. And then there's a lot there. They
That's
got their
definitely,
expanded
yeah,
value
that's
proposition
it's
here.
interesting, isn't it? Because that's definitely something that I was thinking about in the lead up to this um, chat as well, was there there is a bit of a balance that I think tradies especially have to try and find between being too polished and
Yes.
then coming
Yeah.
giving the appearance of, well, if you come to us, we're going to charge you an absolute fortune to do whatever it is.
Yeah.
And that might be their market. They might be, maybe they're commercial plumbers and, so they're looking for a different client. Or for example, you might be a builder that caters to a certain type of home renovation that's more
Yeah.
upmarket and more expensive. And then obviously it makes sense. But I think that is something that any tradie who's thinking about redoing their website needs to work out, is where's my brand positioned in the market. And that's something we actually haven't spoken about in the past, is brand positioning. But that's sometimes a good thing to do, is first sit down, think of all your competitors, and all the obvious names in your industry as well, like even the big guys, if maybe you're a little guy, or if you're sort of medium, who are some of the little guys, and then actually plot that out in a brand position and figure out, where am I in that brand position? And then your website should match that as well.
Yep, agree. And then, because I think that's one real danger too. I mean, we see probably too often that the websites just look really bad, but I think in this industry, you got to be careful too. You don't make it too polished.
And you want that connection as well. We always talk about having like the user journey being like neatly sort of stitched together, that it all makes sense. That if you're talking about when somebody first searches for you, then what their experience is through the search, what their experience is on your website, but then also what their experience is then when you rock up at their door.
Yeah.
Like you want that to all kind of make sense.
Yeah. And probably is a good hack on that one. I think you've got a good idea there in terms of, you want to understand your brand positioning. You could very easily just grab all your competitor brands, put them into GPT and just say, can you do a competitor map for it? Yeah.
I've done it. It works.
Yeah, that's a great use of GPT is
Do you know what I haven't done though, as which this would be interesting, and maybe this is what you're actually saying, is I've done this a long time ago, way back when ChatGPT first launched 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Whenever it was a while ago. It's been a few years though.
You'd be like, probably just over 2 years.
But then you had to feed it a lot of information. So you had to tell it about the businesses. So I would go and take things off the websites and say, this is this business. And I don't think you need to necessarily do that anymore, because I think ChatGPT, I find nowadays when I'm doing some research on a business, when we're getting ready to,
It's already got a
write a
sense. Yeah.
strategy or something like that, I don't actually need to always tell ChatGPT a lot about the business. I just say who the business is.
Yeah.
And the
No, I know
fact
what
that
you
he
mean.
already knows a lot about the business because
Yeah.
it's scraped their
And
data.
I think what's amazing here, though, is you could basically say, plot me in a competitive map and give me a recommendation of where we should position ourselves to have the best competitive advantage over
Yeah,
this competitor set, you know.
yeah,
And that's something that years ago you'd be paying thousands of dollars to get some agency to look at that
yeah.
for you. You can do that in 5 minutes now. I mean,
It's amazing.
that's a great use of it.
Mm,
Um,
yeah.
so cool. What I want to do though is, so again, these guys got some good trust signals here. I also like that they're showing their team. Like I
Mm,
think that's a good one. Again,
mm.
another trust signal. Um, to reiterate this again, I'll show you this other example of the one. I mean, I'm biased here because we have designed this one, but at least to help exemplify what I think works well on sort of a tradie site. So this is the drain fixes one. And again, you want to have clear value proposition above the fold. And they sort of talk, fix it one, fix it forever, where the drain specialist plumbers use.
Can I just point something out as well? Because there's going to be certain things that are not necessarily obvious, but even like making the word specialist blue, just to help like that particular
Mm,
part of that value proposition stand out. So you've got the Melbourne pipe relining, all makes sense to me, but then you've thrown in the word specialist and you've put it in blue so that it really jumps out. It's things like that, those accent colors as well that
yeah.
are important.
The other thing I'd say is have the call number very visible. You tend to get a lot of calls with these sort of tradie style sort of websites. So you want to make that very accessible
Mm.
and clear what they want to, where they go to make a call. Now, this is something I think is really important, for almost any tradie site is you go value proposition and then give me something about trust.
Yeah.
That's why I've sort of here you go straight into reviews, because if it's like when I'm making that split second decision of who do I go with, if I'm quickly seeing high number of Google reviews or an independently referenced reviews, I'm like, okay, these guys have been around and, there's a few other people vouching for them as well. So I think that's a really important sort of quick trust signal. Um, so you can see like clear calls to action. You want to be really clear, what people need to do to inquire, where they would go. And the other thing I think is really important for tradies is like put your warranties on there. Like what can you expect in terms of quality, and also put any industries that you're part of or standards that you adhere to, just to give that user a sense. It's just subliminal messaging, but it's just giving that user a sense of, okay, these guys seem legit because they're part of some sort of organization. I can look them up. Give them a sense of how long. I've got a video here where I like the idea of like the owner sort of, it's almost saying a quick hello. So you go, oh, okay, that's the guy that I'm going to be dealing with,
Mm.
or that's his team. So I think that sort of works well for these sort of tradie sites. Um,
Yeah, because the idea of like um something that's authentic and trust, those two are so closely tied together.
yeah,
So whenever you can introduce something that you go, this is authentic, this is the actual person, and especially video content, I just think it just adds to the
oh,
trust so much.
massively. And I would say one of the real pitfalls that a lot of these tradie sites can fall into is the imagery that they use, and they'll often
Mm.
just put in stock imagery.
Yeah,
And it looks like it's from the US, it looks
yeah,
American,
yeah,
looks from you, and you just kind of don't buy into it. And then all of a sudden you're like, who are these
yeah.
guys? And I think you're much better off even just getting like an amateur photographer, just doing a
Oh,
few quick snaps and
absolutely.
just getting something that's a
Yeah,
bit rough around there. I mean, they're
yeah.
tradies. We're not, you're not expecting them to have really high polished
No.
photography, but it's like,
That's not why
show
you're
me you in the
there
weeds.
anyway.
Yeah.
You just want to see this
Yeah.
is a legitimate business, this is a real person, and it looks like somebody that I can work with. But it's not just their photographs either. It's I think that's the one that's the most obvious place that you notice that, oh, these guys have just scraped something off the internet, they've just paid for things and they've thrown it together. But even in the content, there's often very like cookie cutter content. It just looks like very generic. So you need to watch out for that. You've got to be careful. The more you can introduce your personality into your website
Yeah.
as well, the more authentic that website becomes, the greater the trust that a person sort of subliminally sort of picks up on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I really love them, like tradies, like taking photos of the owners or like who's doing the work and just showing them front and center. So you get a real sense of like, who are these guys? Like what
Yeah.
makes you think they can trust them? Um, we've got here sort of a clear reference to the, to the process. Because the thing is, a lot of the times because you don't know what happens when, you're doing some of the work. And so giving a clear sense of what you can expect, I think is important. This one's particularly the case because it's like, um, pipe relining where you're like, a lot of
Yeah.
people are like, I don't even know what
What
that
is
is. So
Yeah.
the sort of the how it works are good.
Mhm.
But then, yeah, I think here the team photo, you want to show that off. And so they really know who they're dealing with. And then this is a nice one, the old price match guarantee. I think, just to give the users a good sense that they're going to get a good value sort of offering as well. So, um, yeah, something around that. And then we've got the old favorite FAQs, which is more, it's part user experience here, part for SEO, to be honest. There's probably like, yeah, you want to, definitely from an SEO perspective, you like to get a bit of extra content on the page and you can do that through your FAQs. But yeah, the common questions, you want to get them on there as well.
I'll just say actually, is that the end of the page?
That's
Does
the
it
end of
just
the
go down
page.
to the
Yeah,
end?
yep,
Yeah.
yep.
So because for the person who's kind of just watching this and maybe thinking about building a new website or building their first website and thinking, oh, what are those different things that I need to include? I mean, this is a really good example. You can go to one of these websites and you can see these are very common, what would you call them? Like sort of sections
Structures. Yeah.
in the structure of the website, these different sections, like the FAQs, the how it works is something we
Yeah.
very commonly include. The reviews is often, that I would say always included as
Yeah.
well.
Yep.
And what I wanted to ask you though is the above the fold, I think many of the websites we build have we have very similar sort of types of content. We've got a value proposition. We call out exactly what it is, and we have a call to action.
Yeah.
So you always want that at the top, above the fold. But those
Absolutely.
sections that then follow that, they're not always in the same order.
Yeah.
So the hierarchy differs. Is there and I know we sort of often favor the reviews, but not always. The reviews aren't always the very
Yeah.
next thing. Sometimes it's the how it works. Sometimes it's something else, maybe a little blurb about the business. How do you know what the hierarchy should be? Is that something that just comes down to experience? Is it something that you're looking at your competitors? Is it something that you need to test? Is it something that you just you sort of get a sense because of the type of the business and you go, well, we just feel strongly or we just know based on our experience and I'm talking about the experience of the plumber or the painter that my customers are largely interested in what we offer. Like for example, for these guys, drain fixes, people are confused with the process, so we want to make sure that the process
Is
is
really
clear
clear.
on the
Yeah.
page. What's your
Well,
sort of way to approach that?
I think what you've just said is spot on. That it's not that there's always, and this is the case for all UX really. There's not a one size fits all. And I noticed this even just a couple of weeks ago going through with a client where I had a certain structure and the client was like, no, he was really big on like services have to be straight underneath the banner. And he had good logic for that too. He's like, like that's exactly, once they're here, they really just want to see that we've got the service that they're looking for. It needs to come straight up. And you go, fair enough. And it's like, and it depends on, and particularly if you've already got some brand trust there, then you may go, then at the end of the day, you're just trying to make it the most intuitive experience for the user and what's most relevant. And if the user already has the trust and they already know what it's about, then yeah, they're looking for the specific service and then they go. So I think it's a case of you need to take the step back and go, what are all the things that I think this user needs to learn before they're going to make an inquiry? And what are the most important things? But the other thing to say is that trust signals are often subliminal and that the user's not necessarily reading them. But if you didn't have them, it wouldn't register in their, like deeper in their psyche.
Yeah.
So, for example, the reason why in these cases I love to do reviews straight under the banner is because the user's probably not really reading it. but they're kind of just subliminally going, oh, maybe they'll see there's
There's
59
50,
reviews or
they
something
get
like that. They just
55.
kind of go, yep, I'm ignoring that, but I'm going down. But in their minds, they're kind of going, yep,
Yeah.
okay. They're being honest about, they're trying to be transparent about that. They've got that. Um, and then I would say in this case, we've got like the expanded value proposition, because this again is more trying to build more trust with them, because they're not necessarily a recognized brand. So we're going, look, let's try to get across that we've been around for a long time, and we've got these certificates and so forth. So I'm putting the user through a bit more of a trust building journey here, and that's what I'm showing them a photo, and then I'm getting into the services.
Mm.
But the same token, if you're like, nah, look, I think the users would be pretty familiar with us already. Like for example, when we do the gym sites,
Yeah.
the gym sites would be an example where you might go, yep, okay, they already trust the brand. They just want to get the right service, get a quote on that. And then you might want to bring that up so that you're getting them, letting them define what they're looking for sooner.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it comes down to how trusted the brand is already, and if you feel like there's more that you need to explain to the user before they're going to be ready to choose their service. Um, because yeah, the first thing that users doing when they're landing the site is they're trying to understand, are they on the right
On the right
place?
place.
Like, are you offering something that seems like is a service they're looking for? And then they're trying to go, do I trust these guys? And then they're kind of like, okay, now I'm ready to invest more time, more energy into it. Um, so yeah, there's no
Yeah.
necessarily set answer on
No.
that, but I would say, um, depending on how well the brand is known, if it's not well known, then you're trying to do more trust
Mm.
signals higher up on the
Yeah.
page. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and then uh, I've got another one here if we want to have a quick look at that as well. Again, this is just another one that I saw, but it just reiterates some of the structures that I was saying are important. Again, um, you know, clear value proposition above the fold, clear call to action. You got the other thing I like about visuals like this is you get a sense that there's, it's not just a one-man band just around the corner. They've got a bit of a team here. And again, it depends who they're targeting, but these guys are clearly doing commercial and residential. So for that commercial side, they're giving across those sort of trust sections there. They do the same thing. This is an expanded value proposition here. So they're sort of going more into why you should trust them. They even use that there in the trusted Melbourne plumbers. They're definitely trying to get that across. And then they go into their services.
Mm.
So I'd say that's a very common structure for these sort of trading sites where you go top above the fold, you get some imagery that really talks to it with a clear value proposition. Then there's some sort of expanded value proposition, and then you go into services. And then I think they have their reviews, or they go about. So again, I think that's good, showing a photo of the person, and then they get the testimonials. But I think so, for example, here, this could be an example where you go, is this legit? Like it's not, this isn't like a Google review. This is their own reviews. What happens if you click on that? Oh, no, it is actually linked to Google. Oh, so that's good. So I would encourage them there that there's actually just show that a little bit earlier, but give you a little bit more trust on that.
Yeah, that's good. I
So,
mean, that's a similar structure to
and then
the other
FAQ,
one.
yeah, it's very similar actually.
Similar, isn't it?
Yeah. Um, so I think that would definitely be, a pretty solid structure.
How important are the FAQs? Because what I sometimes feel like I notice when looking at tradies websites is they're often built for Google and Google bots
Mm,
rather than actually for people. And I know we love FAQs for that
or
reason.
SEO,
Yeah,
yeah.
it's really good for SEO. But how important is it to use the FAQs to sort of as a trust? Is it for trust? Is it for objection handling? I suppose it's for both of those
Look,
things.
yeah, I would say
It's really
you,
you're tackling lots of different things there,
yeah,
aren't you?
you're primarily probably doing it for SEO because it's
Mm.
just helping you a lot there.
Yeah.
But you want to be thoughtful in terms of the FAQ. Like you want to make sure you're answering legitimate questions there. So it
Yeah.
is, but it's further down the page. To be honest, a lot of people aren't even going that far down the page. You're
No.
probably looking at less than 20%, maybe 15%, or this far down on the page anyway. So all the important stuff should be higher up.
Yeah.
And then this is more of an SEO play. But yeah, there's
Mm.
for that detailed orientated person, they can kind of read more as they want to. So
And that's actually one that I don't think we did really talk much about, but just to point it out is that when you're thinking about what sort of content you put in, so we talked about like the structure and some of the elements and things like having the reviews, the actual content that goes onto the page, it's good to put in content that builds trust, but also you want, and branding content as well. So like think about your tone of voice and stuff like that. But also objection handling is an important feature of a high converting website as well. Think about what are the things that are going to stop people from converting? What are some of their worries or their
yeah,
concerns? Like often it's going to be around cost. And you mentioned earlier as well, often it's going to be around guarantees as well.
yeah,
And that stuff you can put in your FAQs. You
yeah.
can use your FAQs as like an
It,
objection handling space.
yeah, it's a really interesting question there too around price because users love price transparency. But you don't see a lot of that on tradie sites.
Mm,
So one thing I would love to see more of, and I would challenge tradies to kind of back themselves a bit here, is give more transparency around ranges and why. Like, it's like just tell us like what we might expect and what, or even if you don't give an exact figure, but like what are the things that are going to impact on price that we want to ask you some questions on this because this could, impact or this could impact. But giving me a range is really helpful.
mm,
And the thing is what most people don't realize is that people actually trust that more and they're more likely to then follow up. But I understand a lot of business, particularly if they're jobs that might be above, $500, $1,000, you're like, oh, I want to speak to them first.
mm,
But if you can give pragmatic transparency on pricing, it'll go a long way. It
mm.
builds a lot of trust.
Yeah,
So, and then we see that so commonly in the user testing is
yeah,
that users just would love to
yeah,
have transparency on
yeah,
pricing. So that's it.
yeah.
That's a good call out on that.
Yeah.
Um, all right. Well, I think we could probably leave it there unless you had anything else you wanted to
No,
really contribute on this
I
one.
was gonna. It's just we probably don't have all that much time, but I just one last sort
Yeah,
of
one
thought
gem.
about
Yeah,
one.
well, give
Well,
us
I don't know if
the
it's a
parting
gem.
gem.
It's not really
It's
a
not
gem.
he
No, it's
backpedaling.
not really a gem.
Yeah, actually, it's
I
not good
think
at
we can
all.
call it. Yeah,
Nah, it's not.
yeah, everyone. Um, no, I was
Yeah,
just gonna say something that I've noticed as well, and it's an interesting one is that like you've got these other big businesses entering this space because they have got such big sort of muscles in the web space. You think of people like High Pages as an
yeah,
example.
yeah,
Now those guys they've got huge budgets. This is what they do is they're web based, so they've got these incredible websites. They spend a lot of time thinking about their UX and conversion rate optimization on their websites as well. And do you think that um, that's anything for these tradies to be concerned about? Are they up against, we saw it with when Amazon entered e-commerce. And it was like, well, now all of a sudden, I can remember it was a mad scramble for a long time as Amazon just grew and grew and grew. For so many e-commerce businesses, they were going, we have to keep up with Amazon. We have to, if we want to compete, if we want to get people shopping with us, we've got to make sure that we are as easy to shop with as Amazon is. We've got to offer free shipping. We've got to offer, express shipping, same day delivery. We've got free returns. And they just went crazy trying to keep up with Amazon. I'm giving my opinion here, so I don't know if I'm answering the question for you, but
mm,
I don't think it's the same as true for tradies. I think that you look at companies like High Pages, I think they're catering to a different stage in the user journey.
yeah,
And so they're catering to somebody who's like, I just want to collect 10 quotes quickly. And so they want a really easy place that they can collect those quotes. But what tradies should do is they should think about their UX, but they shouldn't overthink it. Because I think that also,
mm,
like we're talking about authenticity, I think that you can lose that if you just become this perfectly polished website.
yeah,
Depending, again, it depends on who, like what like who you are as a business and where
Yeah.
you sort of position yourself in the market. But I just
Um,
wonder if like because there's a few of them, and you just wonder are they making are people starting to prefer just going to high pages than the tradies
uh,
website and do tradies need to
yeah, and you
worry
need
about
to sort of
that?
go
Do
through
they need
that.
to think about that?
Look, I'm not seeing that support in the data yet. Like if you look at across all the industries that we sort of work in for tradies,
Mm,
high pages is not dominating in the searches.
no.
So the vast majority of searches are still going to the tradie pages, albeit high
Mm,
pages would get great traffic. And
yeah,
it's a good option to look at. I'm
yeah.
an advocate of you look at all your channels
High
and you
pages,
just
there's a
see,
couple of them.
I'd say, yeah, if you're a tradie, yeah, why not? You'd compare your high pages, how it performs cost per lead to Google Ads and your social media, whatever else you're doing. I think you want to explore every channel, but I don't think we can see any evidence yet that they would be doing away with the website to just
Mm,
focus on those sort of listings because they just don't own the listings yet.
mm,
And I think it's very hard for them to do that because high pages is across so many channels, whereas Google likes to favor sites that are really
yeah.
a specialist
Yeah,
in a
exactly. But the
channel. So,
tradie themselves, they don't have to feel like, oh man, there's high pages and they've got this incredible website. I better make sure that my website is as good
oh, I
as high
see.
pages. And,
Yeah,
and that's,
no,
I just don't
yeah.
think that that's the
No,
case.
and I don't think it's structured that well, to be
No.
honest. I mean, High Pages just
Yeah.
got a template and they just
Yeah.
spat it out across every
Across
industry. I mean,
everything.
they've
Yeah.
just got a good
Yeah.
high domain
Yeah.
authority and they
Yeah.
get good rankings, but I,
Yeah.
I don't think they
Yeah.
particularly have a great
Yeah.
structure. But they have brand trust, right? So the user
Yeah.
goes there, they trust that. So, again, it comes down to what we were saying. People,
Mm,
the consumer, the user probably feels like, oh, if I'm finding one through High Pages, I'm more likely to be able to
mm,
trust them, it's an important consideration because
mm.
for tradies, everyone's worried about getting ripped
Yeah.
off,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's that can happen.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah,
Yeah. Cool.
cool.
Awesome.
All right,
What's
and
next?
then next coming up on the next UX rated podcast is we're going to be looking at e-commerce. So
Yeah.
this is
Cool.
more your sphere, Bruce.
Yep.
So
This is
you're going
my
to be you're
area.
going to be leading
Yeah.
this
I'm
next
excited.
one, I
Yeah.
think. And so we'll be looking at some UX in e-commerce, what you need to do to get the best conversion rates. And
Yeah.
yeah,
All good.
it's a big topic, and
That's
it's
massive.
an important one at the moment with the retail sector is
Oh,
struggling a lot at the
no,
moment.
huge.
So
I know. We've seen all the businesses
um,
shutting down and so many people struggling. And
mm,
interestingly, a few of them have decided to remain open online only.
yes,
And so
yeah,
that's actually interesting. And I think it's because that is the space where you can still do it. You can still pull it off.
yeah.
But yeah, I'm excited because I tell you what, there's so much that goes into UX on
Oh,
an
stay
e-com website.
tuned.
So
God,
yeah.
Bruce is about to divulge all his
Yeah,
secrets. Here we
yeah,
go.
sounds good. Yeah,
All right.
cool.
Thank you for anyone listening, and yeah, stay tuned for our next episode coming up.
See you then.
See you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.